Okay, I'd like to get started. We can record this and share with those who come in late as well. They'll be provided after the webinar. So I just want to thank you everybody to join today, and we'll give a quick intro IT-Conductor, as well as provide the overall platform capabilities, and we'll talk a little bit in every scenario that you're going to see today is working demonstration of the basis automation to help with minimizing the effort to automate the daily operational tasks in your SAP environment. So let me get started now, and we'll cover the content. Everybody can see my screen. If not, raise your hands. Or if you can't hear me, raise your hands. Okay, so I think we'll start the intro and then talk about the most common challenges of dealing with daily SAP basis type of support tasks. And this may be common across the many different types of customers, on-prem, cloud, whether you are managing it yourself or outsourcing, or you are the managed service provider. There's something here to be said about automating some of the repetitive tasks. Okay, so then we'll cover the types of things that you can automate. Throughout the content today, we will stop along the way and put up some quick polls just to get an idea of where you are, what kind of challenge you have in the automation journey. And we will also cover some basic capabilities that the platform has as a part of an integrated IT-Conductor patented platform. We have many capabilities around managing, monitoring, and orchestrating the enterprise IT through our intelligent automation platform. So we'll cover some of those so that you can get an idea what else you can do with the platform. And at the end, we'll obviously provide information if you want to get started today. We are very frictionless. You can start a demo or do your own automation pretty much in your own system landscape, even in Sandbox, to see how it works, or you can see our pre-recorded or our live demo environment by getting an ID, logging on, and see various things. Again, thank you for being here, and let's get through some of this content, and we'll look at the first thing. Most common challenges customers, people work with SAP on a daily basis is having to deal with daily checking the system to make sure it's available and it's performing for the business. We are also managing too many alerts coming in from various different sources, whether it's a single monitoring or multiple monitoring solution, operating systems, databases, applications, infrastructure, cloud, etc. And then also their time having to deal with those notifications and finding root cause. The root cause is maybe not so obvious when you're getting a bunch of alerts that don't have any meaning, or they don't correlate, and they don't point you to where you can take your analysis. And then, of course, every day, basis support folks are struggling to manage the nature of the basis tasks because they are not always planned. There are a lot of things that has to happen. Jobs failed, maybe RFC connection died, and you have queues, messages, maybe file system fill up. These are type of things that are spent every single day to keep an environment running for the business. So see, these are areas that typically challenges that fall into for a basis administrator. I myself been a basis guy since probably 28 years ago. So I've been in the trenches working many different types of customers, and I think we echo these as part of the pain points. Okay. So at this point, we'll put up a poll. So folks who are on, feel free to go through the poll and just give a quick response. So are you using automation on a daily basis for SAP operations? So it looks like about half of the folks do use some kind of automation in their daily operations. So maybe I can. So let's say you do have automation today in your shop. What kind of tools are you using for automation? This is kind of a free form. So just to get an idea what type of automation platform or solution you're using today, feel free to type in your response. So far, I guess maybe some of the folks on here are already using IT-Conductor, so we have some do the generic job change, SAP batch. Okay, great. So anyway, this is the topic, obviously, that many people are curious about what's out there, what can be done, and what kind of automation can you do, right? Not just SAP, but the whole ecosystem. What can you do with those automation solutions? So let's go to our content and go through again. So what are some of the benefits for automating operation tasks? Obviously, some of these are areas where you're looking to manage depending on volume of your environment. So if you're a heavily batch environment, you probably want to manage your batch schedules, your jobs, and all these configuration that happens every day to monitor and manage those jobs that may fail, long-running jobs, etc. Some of the other benefits is obviously dealing with failures or exceptions. These healing, what we call automated recovery. If scenarios are easy to take care of, we can take care of it for you on your behalf so that you don't have to manually trigger a recovery or restart of something like a job or a queue or a printer that's down, something like that. Some of the benefits also include that we're not only dealing with SAP layer, but all the infrastructure that supports the ecosystem that includes the OS, the databases, and maybe on cloud, maybe a VM that you want to also do something. Perhaps you want to bring up an app server when you have a workload that is detected to exceed a certain threshold. You have a pre-configured app you can bring up. We can do that as well. And all of the other types of reporting that we can do for you in terms of just catching errors or states that are exceptions and then handling them automatically. Okay, so these are some of the benefits, and we'll talk about some of these in detail as we go through each of the scenario. So right now, let's take another poll. We'd like to kind of get an idea in your day-to-day job, or if you're supervising a team, what percentage do you think the task that you probably would like to automate most? What percentage do you think today is your response? Again, just take a stab at it. We each have our own ideas about what can be automated. So this is not necessarily a hard number. It's something that you think should be automated or can be automated. Okay, so we have some results here already. So majority, yeah, I think a lot of you are kind of in between. I think 50-70% is a good number. We're not saying everything should be automated or could be automated or makes sense to be automated. Just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it, because it's maybe doesn't happen that often. Maybe the implementation cost to automate something that you may only do once every now and then, and it's not that complicated. Maybe you don't need to spend that time. So there is a value to assessing what should be automated. What is the return on investment when you spend that effort to implement and test the automation? And again, automation is not something you build and then you leave it alone, right? Because systems change, they evolve, and the automation need to keep up with the configuration that might need to be updated to keep it working well. Okay, so let's continue on. So some of the benefits, as we talked about, is automating SAP operation tasks. Everything that you look at before you can start automating, you must need to be able to monitor and manage it. Otherwise, how do you know what state they may be in, so that you can constantly keep track, and then also to implement the fixes or recovery, right? So increase availability into your system, analyzing problems. These can be also automation. You don't think about monitoring as automation, but if you don't automate your monitoring, you just have a bunch of chats and alerts. You don't have any structure how to do quick root cause analysis, or if you have a mean time to repair, so that when you have a problem, you have a quick fix for it. That depends on the analysis you can do in an automated manner, right? So together we combine the monitoring of applications together with infrastructure to give you ability to monitor all the services, so that it makes sense what components are affecting what, right? And then once we have the monitoring and the management of those, then we can introduce the concept of auto recovery or policy based. Policy just means that if something happened, do something about it, right? alert somebody, let somebody know. If you think about notification and alerting, is kind of an automation. You monitor, you detect, and then you let whoever is in charge or the on-call person know. And maybe the on-call person is not the same, right? Shouldn't be the same person. How do you automate rotation of who get notified, right? So maybe during the day it's this, and during the night it's that. Even monitoring itself can be a automation, because maybe during the day you have performance threshold different than at night when you have more batch. And so you should automate the automatic threshold that applies to your system performance and KPIs. So some of these are things that we can take care of in an integrated platform. So here's a list again on our poll. We throw up a bunch just to stir up common things that we see with our customers. So if we can do a poll at this stage, you can pick one or many. So feel free to see what you like to get automated in your environment. So here's kind of the result. Most people, let's see who's the most popular. Still coming in. Start, stop. 90%. Actually, that's the common one. Snoozing, those are good ones. Yeah, user password. I can imagine if you have thousands of users, they're probably sending a lot of tickets to help desk, and somebody has to unlock or verify their identity and reset their credentials, send them updates. Those type of things can walk down help desk if you don't already have a self-service reset, right? Nowadays, with the single sign-on as well, we can facilitate the integration of Active Directory into the mix so that they can actually automatically be unlocked and send their new password after we do that. So we'll go through some of that. Just do this. Okay, so that's a good list. We can continue at this stage. I think maybe it's on the list. Maybe you have something that's a hot item that you like to automate that we didn't prompt there. So at this stage, if maybe we can get a wish, you can type in, maybe semicolon separated list of things that you want to be automated. If it's something you do today, every single day that is not currently automated. Yeah, it can be not a daily one, but maybe something that takes a lot of time and you wish it was more automated. Maybe you're asked to do something weekly or monthly, like a system refresh. I actually typed this one, security patching. I kind of think that is a big time waster. It's a required, necessary evil, but takes a lot of time and effort in analyzing and applying patches throughout the system, because you obviously have to coordinate downtime. You have to start systems, etc. So that's quite a manual, labor-intensive task that should be automated. Okay, so I think at this stage I will go into the solution a little bit more introduction. So again, I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Linh Nguyen. I am the CEO and co-founder of IT-Conductor. And IT-Conductor is a patented platform that is created from the ground up to be cloud native. We are a SaaS. That means we don't install anything on your site. We have a network technology that reverse proxy allow us to communicate with your on-prem system securely, and allows us to not only monitor but manage the systems that you have, not only SAP but non-SAP. And once we do that, we again would be able to orchestrate many automation tasks on your behalf in one complete integrated package. So really, this is our charter. Our mission is really to help you automate more and more as you go along. And it's a journey. There is nobody that can say, I'm done, I automated, I'm done. It's a constantly checking what needs to be done, managing it, and then, hey, I can do this automatically. Can you orchestrate it? So this is a mission of our company. Okay, and we can get into other scenarios that are fairly complex as well that we handle. Okay, so how does IT-Conductor work? Again, IT-Conductor is a patented platform. We utilize the gateway, which is the secure component on your infrastructure behind your secure firewall. We don't come into your environment. Your environment uses the gateway. If you are familiar with technology like SAP Cloud Connector, it's similar, where it securely communicate with our cloud IT-Conductor platform. It is multi-tenancy, it is flexible and adapt to your particular application. So whatever application you have, you would like to manage, We have what so-called adapters that will intelligently retrieve monitoring data and also events and process them in the cloud. And then we apply our policy-based thresholds, etc., so that we can either notify you via alert notification or through email, SMS, or maybe channel Slack or whatever, right? But we can also take the next step and implement automation as part of the recovery effort if there is something that you would like us to do when we detect the scenario. And of course, we deploy this all within cloud native speed, meaning that from the time that you install this little gateway until you actually are up and running, discovering your SAP environment, is literally in terms of minutes and hours, not days, weeks. Depending on your application environment, we can do a full assessment with our automatic landscape discovery. So we can plug into your SAP landscape, and we can discover all your inventory of systems, etc., and that can be incorporated into the first level of monitoring and management. Okay, so that's how the platform works. What areas are we into? So as I said, monitor, right? We cover complete application performance management. So that means top down. We're doing both also on-prem and in cloud. So if you're on a single cloud like AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud, we have customers on all of those environments and as well as on-prem. It doesn't matter because we can deploy our IT-Conductor gateway anywhere. Multiple of them can be also backup for failover, high availability. So our platform is guaranteed 99.9% availability of the monitoring and automation solution. So with the application already monitored, you can also then manage, and this means like service management. So if you are reporting things like average response time for finance users, sales, or manufacturing, etc., those are what we call service level management. So we have near real-time workload analysis that can report and trigger to let you know that maybe, say, month-end processing is going slow, or jobs are going beyond their set thresholds, etc. So those are managing areas. And then, of course, that allows us to send you reports about how your health of the system is doing on a regular basis, as well as reporting all the different KPIs that you care about to manage your technical daily activities, as well as management to see perhaps service level reports, or perhaps capacity reports, right? And then, of course, the automation is the ultimate goal for most customers who journey through this, that eventually they want to take a lot off their plate from a manual activity. So this may include things like migration. We can include things like system refresh. We can even take care of things like automatic transport management for SAP transport. STMS as well, that can be implemented so that workflow will take care of transport requests automatically. Okay. So how do we offer our services in a meaningful manner? We have a so-called service catalog. This is a conceptual way to group or categorize the type of services that you can, say, automate or request. So just like you have a service catalog, you come along, you say, I would like to add monitoring for a system. Maybe I want to add a maintenance schedule for restarting my system every weekend. Maybe I want to coordinate some reports to be sent, or maybe I want to do something like deploy a new N+1 system so that I can start an upgrade project. These come through our service catalog offering. That means that we can categorize the type of services that we offer, and you can use a request process that will create a ticket, and then behind the scene can be automatic, semi-automatic, or can be manual as well. Not everything needs to be automatic, right? But this will trigger the audit central request process. And once you have requested that, it essentially will create ticket. We can spin up the automation services to get it done. We will report back what's been done. You have full audit for what's been done and who requested it. So those are clear online capability for not only doing the work, but providing full audit trail of the work. Okay. So at this point, I think it's good for us to kind of look at some of the areas we put up before that. These are some examples we picked. There are more examples. We continue to grow the library of automation. But customers bring us these over time, as they struggle to manage certain things. They become workflows that they like to automate, and we can take those and templatize them and offer them to all customers who can benefit from them. So as you can see here, we have many different scenarios. We have password resets. We have batch jobs restarts. So 70% of jobs that are banned today or abort, maybe due to resource constraint, maybe timing. Most of the time, customers, what do? They just restart them and they continue. So we can do that. We can also help to clean up any file system. This is another area where systems can go to full stop if, let's say, your Oracle archive file system fills up or something like that. Sometimes also non-production, you may not want to back up every single day if the change rate is not big and you don't want to waste storage and all that, but you have full recovery. Perhaps you want age-based. That means, let's say, if my system only need to be backed up every 3 days, maybe only want to do it 72 hours. We can trigger those automatically, okay? Things like qRFCs, a lot of the systems depend on transmission of information between, like, for instance, say sales order to cash or something like that that goes between systems. These, when they fail, they break the business process. They can be resolved by IT-Conductor by detecting that the message has been hung for a long time, or maybe they have an error, and most of them, again, can be reprocessed automatically without fail. So we can automatically restart those. If you're manufacturing or anything, shop floor, warehouse that may still use printers, maybe delivery logistics that needs actually bill of lading, printers can hang up the entire production line. We've seen our customers complain that when printers are down, people are standing around waiting for something to do. And so this can be also automated through our platform. And in today's world, we have a lot of systems that are high availability, like clusters. Clusters are very complicated in terms of being able to monitor because they involve multiple services, components. So you want to know when something occurs, or maybe where it's a soft error, but you don't want the cluster to, say, fell over because it ran out of threshold in terms of the fail count. Some of these can be automatically managed, monitored, and reset by IT-Conductor. And one of the top answers you provided in the poll is about stop, start, snoozing, and all that. So I think that's one of the areas we do for customers as they onboard systems. They say, hey, these group of systems, we're doing monthly patching or monthly restarts to free up memory or something like that, or just semaphores, those type of things. We can do that. We can stop application. We can also stop databases, and including the operating system reboot and all of that as well. So if you're on a cloud environment and you want to bring down the VM, that can happen as well. So we'll do this demo in the next few minutes here. Okay, so the first one we're going to talk about is SAP Security User Password Reset. All right. So I'm going to play a pre-recorded video and I'll talk through the scenarios. Because in this case, demonstration is that somebody logs on to SAP multiple times, got the password wrong, maybe came back from vacation and forgot the password. They don't have single sign-on. And so eventually the user gets locked out. So in this case, typically they would call help desk. In our case, what happened is once the password no longer works and they get failed attempt locked out, we can detect that scenarios. We actually, in IT-Conductor, will catch that through the CCMS alert for user locked. Right. So if the user is locked, you can see we have a security container, and these are the charts that show the incidents that happen every single time an event like a system user get locked. We automatically detect what user it is. Right. From there, we can trigger the workflow. Now, of course, you have full control when you implement something like this. What is your password policy and all that? And should you unlock, and what type of user should you unlock? So we can control, not just blindly unlocking everything, right? So in this case, normal dialog users, for instance, you got the standard login, wrong password, or incorrect credentials. What happened then is we have the auto recovery action associated with that. And this is where it triggers the actual unlocking and sending you the or sending the user the new password. They need to log in and change that. So only that user, once it's authenticated, gets notified, right, automatically. So now there's no help desk involved. There's no going to some web page and trying to enter something to try and reset credentials. And you will see here the workflow. So these are workflow templates that we build, and then essentially we clone them for you. If you deploy, if you decide to use this, essentially we will actually go through and say, okay, this user's locked. What kind of user are they? Again, different users, maybe warehouse users, maybe office users, etc. And then once the user gets unlocked, they get an email. The email will send them the specific new password that we reset once we unlock it. And again, we can also copy basis team or security team, whoever is the designated party to receive these notifications. Full audit trail, who got unlocked, is there as well for reporting purposes. So now that we've basically unlocked, we give them the new password, right? They get in, and that completes the workflow. So essentially now you don't have anyone getting involved at all when there is a user that logged out due to incorrect login. So once we implement this solution, it's kind of a straightforward way to manage the number of security credentials that are wrong every day, that people stop working and they lose the time. So it may be an hour in the traditional process before they get on the system again. Plus there's a manual process. Humans have to validate somebody's credential or their identity before resetting. In this case, you know that the user is a legit user, you automatically will do all that for them on their behalf. Okay, so that's an example there. We'll go to the next scenario. So let's go look at batch jobs. Again, most SAP environment is heavily batch. So that takes a substantial amount of effort to manage batch environment. So let's talk about how we do that for customers. Whether you schedule the jobs in SAP or third party, it doesn't matter. Jobs run somewhere, and when they have a problem, they fail. What we do is we can actually extract the full job log. We can know the state of the job. If it's aborted, we get a notification of the job abort, right? And then once we do this, we have a job that can run, that we can copy. The job itself will then replicate and produce a new job and rerun that job. So we have a very sophisticated control where we only want to restart certain jobs. Maybe you only want to do 5 most critical jobs. You don't want to do every job. You can define the job definition that you want to implement that, or do every job except something. So we support very sophisticated regular expressions. And once you have this definition, you get the message. So not only the job, but all the details about the job. And then we trigger recovery action once we detect that there's been a failed job that falls into the filter, right? As soon as that happens, we submit the rerun of the job. So this recovery is very simple way to solve a lot of the job problems that customers have in terms of managing them on a day-to-day basis. In fact, I think we have, let me just skip 1 second, where we have these type of dashboards. So you can see this is our demo environment. We have many different recovery actions. These jobs here, they actually fail and then they get restarted. And then you get notified on that as an alert, as a recovery action as well. Okay, so you have very detailed reporting on what was done, not just restart and not have any trails to track what was failed and what was restarted. So some of the compliance audit will be met through that. Okay, so the next one I want to cover probably in similar way where we talk about stop-start. We have qRFCs, which are, again, as I said, inbound, outbound queues are part of SAP's queue mechanism for asynchronous queue, documents, processing, messaging, etc. In this case, we have inbound. So inbound queues themselves, you may be CPIC queues. Right here we have, for instance, we track all of the age of the object. So every message has an age. So if they're stuck, maybe you define what stuck means. If it's been there longer than, I don't know, 10 minutes. So from this, we can do the detection of those failed queues, right? And then from there, you can see that these queues, each one of them has a restart. So we can trigger recovery, and the recovery is essentially going to run the same transaction again in the system. Again, most of the scenarios, we have customers that have global manufacturing, and more than 80% of the failed queues actually are restartable. Some might not be, maybe data quality issues, but if that's the case, then we only restart at one time. They get notified and they have to address the issue manually if it's a problem with the data itself. Okay, so this is how we do it. We can specify what queue we will implement restart. And then from that point on, we can alert you to the matter that it's been restarted, and you know if it was stuck, it's an error, maybe state error, failed, system fail, or system error, etc. Okay, so this completes the queue restart in similar ways to jobs. That's also a time saver automatically implemented in our system. All right, so the other thing, again, restarts. This one I will talk about printer. Very complicated. People think that we don't use printer anymore, but in fact, manufacturing, a lot of SAP customers heavily depend on printing, whether, as I say, printing to a PDF, a virtual delivery, or something like that. Printing is part of a very sophisticated supply chain or business process. So what we do, we track all kinds of printers. So SAP printer, LPR printers, they typically send to LPR compliant server, run on Linux or whatever. We trap those errors as they occur by printer. And if the printer has maybe stuck queue or the print requests exceeded a certain time, right? So these requests then are sitting in there and they are blocking all the other print jobs in the queue. So a lot of the customers say, well, when that happens, let's say I'm on a shop floor and nobody's doing any manufacturing because they can't print out the material list or something like that, or maybe trucks waiting for the list before they can leave the dock, it gets stuck. And somebody has to physically go and either restart the printer, etc., etc. In this case, we can see the job counts we monitor for those print queues. We can see that the recovery actions or alerts associated with that. So essentially, if you have a high alert count that keeps piling up, the job is going to take longer to print. It's time to restart because it means it's an indication typically something is not printing. So there are many ways to track the errors. So we have status. So in the printer, we detect the status of printing, whether the printer went down, disabled, is it idle? Idle is a good one. It's not doing anything. Printing's good. But anything else may need a jiggle so that printing automatically resumes. So that way, you can take care of all this without, physically or having somebody on the shop floor go and restart printing. Again, this solves probably 90% of the problem. The other 10% might be physical related, meaning, for instance, out of paper or network disconnect or something. You can see here we monitor the state of the printing, and as the printer goes into disable state, you will get the error trap. The error then itself will trigger the recovery action associated. You can see that somebody will get notified and an alert will go out and a recovery occurred. So then what happened is the printing resumes as part of that auto recovery, right? So this is essentially the process of connecting the recovery action to specific print device for monitoring. So this is an example of there may be other areas in your environment that fall into similar categories. Everybody's different, but essentially the concept is the same, right? And how do we execute the recovery? There are specific, very easy to custom things like simple Unix command, for instance. If you are on Linux print queue, to restart a compliant printing, you can trigger the script or the commands that will take care of the restart of those queues. So in our case, we can show you that this printing can be restarted. So let's look at, I think the log shows, yeah, so here we run a command, pass it the printer ID automatically from the log, and it restarts the actual printing. Okay, so this one I think is covering also similar kind of stop-start, right? Let me go into some of the other areas that are essentially high on the list that you like to get automated. And this one here is stop and start. So for stop and start, essentially you are going to want to stop the application, then the database, then the OS, and perhaps even the VM, depending whether you're on-prem or in cloud environment, virtualized. So here we have our scenario. We have a set of systems, and we have a process definition in IT-Conductor. A workflow is a process definition, what you want to do, what you stop, what you want to start. The definition is separated from the actual instantiation of it. Meaning, let's say I have 20 development systems. You can have a stop start because they will fall into the same architecture. Maybe they're single stack. Maybe QA has multiple stack. You have different technical architecture. The stop and start can accommodate multiple flexible deployment infrastructure, right? So in this case, what we're doing is we actually start an instantiation of the start. And by associating what we call a execution context for what system, it passes the context in and uses the same process definition to stop start them. So in this case, you can do this on a automatic on demand. You can go in and do this on demand like we're demoing here. I'm going to go forward a little bit and say, if you want to look at what it does in each step, we provide the logs, so you don't have to log on to, I don't know, your cloud platform. You don't have to do SSH session. You don't have to need to get onto something else to run some commands, right? So this will take care of the application stop start. And you can see we also track the success of it. So here we started, we automatically monitor it. Now it's 100%. Right, similar to stopping, you will also get the alert if it's a part of the availability monitoring. Now, when we select the context and we run it, we can also associate this into what we call a schedule. So now if I want like maybe sandbox and I want to save money on demand on weekends or after hours, I can do that through, so this is actually bringing down the system here. So we do this for maintenance, but let's say we want to go schedule. So we support full schedules. You can create a schedule for this group of system. I want to do stop start every single day, or I want to do it Monday through Friday. We have a formula. You can insert whatever time schedule you want, time and day of the week, day of the month, whatever. From that, you can associate the activity. So the process that you want to run when the schedule is active can be associated, and then you will see that it runs every single day like that. Okay, so that's a stop start snoozing. I'm kind of going through this fairly quickly because I want to make sure I cover. So at this point, I'm going to flip back to the presentation just for a quick poll. So I think a lot of us know that there are resource constraints everywhere. SAP teams are getting more systems to manage and less people, or with less skills. So let's take a poll right now and see what are some of the constraints you have in your particular company or environment you work with. Okay. Yeah, some of the operational support, even if you bring on somebody, part of the benefit of implementing a automation is that you have a digital process that's already encapsulating for training purposes. Somebody can see how workflow works, what process you go through. It's much easier to train somebody. So even if you want to do manually and you have something semi-automatic for production and you don't have it for QA, they can follow similar process through their training, right? So it looks like lack of skill resource is a problem because, again, could be an issue with the firm not being able to hire quick enough, or maybe there's not enough resources out there that are skilled in the areas that dealt with your environment. Everybody has a different SAP technical environment. So for lack of skill resources, I think that's kind of, we all understand what the meaning of that is. That just means that we don't have enough people that we have trained up to do this job on a regular basis. So then you tend to be falling into not enough people that can do the job. I will throw up one more. Today, if you are doing any kind of basis operations, it varies whether you're doing it yourself or it's outsourced to a managed service provider. Maybe you are a service provider. And depending on the environment, there may be a lot of resources that are not part of the core team that has to do this. So in order to do this, it's good to understand what are the lines of responsibility, right, delineated. So for instance, resetting security, right, you don't want anybody to be able to do that. Maybe you only want security team, because there'll be audits along the way, and security team may be an outsourced to somebody else to handle security. Similar what we see like transports and things like that as well. So I would say 2/3. I think 2/3 of the folks out there manage their own SAP environment, and about 1/3 use third-party managed services, etc. That's good to know. I think that's means that if you are the customer, you can directly implement something and not be subject to whoever the third party, whatever tools or people or skill set they may have. Okay, so I'm going to cover some opportunities here as we kind of follow the timeline. 48 minutes in, I want to make sure I give some time for question and answer. So the key opportunity is obviously to simplify SAP administration involves managing your very complex environment, and environments get more complex, they don't get simpler. Just because you go to cloud or maybe you go to HANA doesn't mean the environment gets more simpler. And so monitoring is the key to getting started. So we always start here. We can't manage what we don't know. So you have to start monitoring, right? And then through that, you establish key performance indicators where you will use that as the gauge or the goal. And then keeping track of what's going on in the environment, notification, and not just notification, not blindly notifying, but controlling the amount of alerts as well as the intelligent ability to send you when something reaches a critical level only, or giving you the direct link when you get a notification to end up, if you click on it, to the root cause. That helps with narrowing down the time as well as focusing on the performance management aspect and not the noise. And then, of course, automation helps us bring together all of these parts and orchestrate them so that you don't have to do them manually. A lot of people have procedures and runbooks. The problem with them is they're not kept up with the system, and they don't get applied. There's so many times we've seen customer make mistakes because they wrote a procedure. It's for one system. They try to apply that to a different system. Maybe you typo in the wrong system ID or something like that. You bring down the wrong system. So there is a lot of risk involved of doing something without understanding or standardizing the process so that it happens the same time every day. So these are an example where you can actually introduce things like our execution context will make sure that you're doing it on the right system. Right? And then measuring the impact. If you're bringing it down and you're not monitoring, how do you know it's down? We have people that actually thought they shut down system on cloud for the weekend, but it never went down because maybe there's an error and SAP never went down, so the whole stack never went down. So those type of things are important to monitor and manage, not wait to the end of the month to see that, right? So I think I'm gonna end right here with the last poll. If we can do the last poll here. How do you monitor success? So does your company have a culture of automation? Does you have a culture of innovation and process improvements, right? This is a free form, there's no right or wrong. And I guess, most of the time customers now say they want high efficiency. If you want a high efficiency, how do you measure it? Meaning like X number of manual tasks or X number of automation tasks, and you measure them, how many times they get used. So it reflects back to where we have something like a dashboard. So if you can think about how we reflect the type of recovery actions on a daily basis, on a week basis, how many times it's done. I have a backup that's run, I have restarts, I have etc. Password reset, how many times it gets done. Is my backup run? How often does it run? All of this involves ability to measure the KPIs that you are interested in to send to management. Because after you implement automation, management is going to ask, well, how did I improve my operations? Is it higher resiliency? Do I have less headcount now and managing more systems? Right. So I think that's kind of the nature of this question. So I want to share what's some of the people have typed in. So ticket status is a good one. I think, if tickets get resolved, if problem get resolved faster, obviously you have mean time to closure or mean time to resolution. And then, of course, you have KPIs, maybe number of users locked out is, very few, or they time to unlock them and they can become more productive. All of that can be so part of the monitoring is to introduce the concept of key performance and how do we monitor and manage and report to that, right? So total time save is a good one. I think that's very worthy, because obviously if you are doing something like transport, if you have a dedicated person doing transport every day, and they take X amount of time to move a transport into QA for testing, if we can do that automatically, that's obviously going to save a lot of time through that. So at this point, for this particular webinar, I do have other demos, but I think we would open up to Q&A right now. If there's any questions, our team online here can answer questions. But before I end on that, I want to invite everybody who is curious to get started. How do I get started? To reach out to us. We certainly would be happy to talk to customers, small, large, anywhere in the world. We're a global team. We can take on, we can show you demos. We can get you into our demo environment so you can kick the tires, and then we can connect a trial account for POC if you want to run through maybe just a small scenario like stop-start automation, etc. Okay, so that's gonna leave it at that. Can we? Is anybody on this has additional questions we can answer? We do have a bunch of other webinars in the past. Our webinar page has past recording. We've covered things like migration automation. We've covered transport automation, system refresh, all of that interesting topics to automate. So if you're interested, visit our main page there that has all the content that you can watch past recordings. I believe we are on the events page, and some of that are here. So this one we just went through will also be on here once we process the video and send out. You will get notification of that. But some of these other ones that are on there as well. So, and if there's a topic that you like us to automate, as I said, interesting challenge, maybe we should talk and provide you what we can do to help minimize the manual effort. Again, it's pain points that we can address. We will do that through automation. Okay. All right. Questions? Anybody need? Okay. Let's see if anything else. You need some agents for automation. No, there's no agents. Vijay asked about automation. So we don't use agent. We're an agentless platform. And so what that means is that, for instance, all of these applications that you can see we work with covers the majority of SAP environment. And so our IT-Conductor platform will simply connect to all of these systems agentlessly. So let's say you have an Oracle or MaxDB or HANA. We just require two types of account. One is a monitoring account to, again, monitor and retrieve information. And one is a robot account, which is kind of like a service. So if you want to restart HANA, obviously you need a user ID that is capable of restarting HANA. So we can provide you all that information, but we will agentlessly connect and do that for you. Everything else, like even the Azure or AWS, if you want to restart a VM, again, we don't put agents there. I would say 95% or more of everything that we handle, there's no agents. There are a few that I wouldn't call agents, but could be something like transports inside into SAP. That is what we call our function module. So you can see our support has downloads for SAP function modules that work with certain areas where, for instance, we're looking at particular modules. For instance, we have LMDB to discover your SAP environment. We might have CRM, Concur, BW. These are very specific. Most of the case, you don't need them. Okay. If we go through something like our transport automation, let's say, we also have ability to do this through our interaction with SAP SDMS as well. It's kind of a similar thing where I talked about automation before. We don't need agents for this. Any other questions you may have? Feel free to type in the chat, raise your hands. Okay. Well, I thank you for your time. I gonna leave it open for another minute. Let's see anybody else have anything else. Otherwise, feel free to reach out to us. We are happy 24/7 team across the globe, and we are technical folks just like you are. Lots of technical SAP experts, and we'll be happy to talk to you whatever journey you're on, whatever stage you're on as part of your efficiency management for SAP environment. Okay. All right. Okay, I'm gonna stop my sharing, but I'll leave the meeting open for another minute in case you need to reach out for any reason. Thank you.